Hi yogis, and welcome to practice. It's Suzanne here coming to you from my home yoga studio. I have a yin practice for you today, and this is a full body practice. We'll be working from the toes all the way up to the crown. For practice, you might like a couple of props. 2 blankets would be great. If you have a block available, grab that too. And we will start as we always do with the breath. So find a comfortable seat, and you might be on a block or on a blanket. Take a moment and close the eyes if you feel comfortable doing so. And take a deep inhale and let it go. And start to find the cadence of the breath. And to settle into this toes to crown energy. I will invite you, as you inhale, imagine the breath running from the toes all the way up the front of the body to the crown. And as you exhale, the breath flowing all the way down the back body, back to the heels. And just imagine that little circular pattern. Inhale, the breath travels up the front body. Exhale from the crown down to the heels. Keep that pattern. Inhale, imagining that breath rising through the front. Exhale, the breath descends down the back. As you breathe here, you might even imagine a little imaginary force field being created, creating a safe space, a sanctuary for your practice today. And if there is an intention you would like to welcome, an intention of wholeness or fullness, or even just acceptance of this body where it is today, welcome that into your heart. Welcome that into your force field. Just a few more breaths here, settling in. And then let the hands drape beside the body. Take an inhale as you reach up and fill up with life, with energy, with love. And as you exhale, bring those hands to rest at the heart, sealing in this intention. And then when you're ready, little drop of the chin and blink the eyes open. We'll start to find our way to our first posture. So you might like to take one of your blankets and place it on the mat so that the knees will have some cush. Once you see where we're going, it'll make sense. And then coming into either all fours or down dog, take the feet at about hips distance, and if you can, flare the toes, create a little space. And then coming into a lovely named pose, broken toe. So the toes stay tucked as we sit back on the heels. Now, certainly if you have knee or foot issues and this isn't happy for you, coming maybe into a kneeling posture or a booty high child's pose would be a lovely alternative here. If this is sustainable for you, stay here. If you feel like it's too much, you can prop the hips up, either coming up high and then sinking in, or even taking the block under the hips, or the blanket in between the heels and the hips can create a little support. I'm not going to lie, this is an intensive pose, but it is wonderful for opening and stimulating the feet. Because of its intensity, it's a wonderful reminder to be in the breath. it definitely gives us the opportunity to allow the work to happen through the feet, the knees, the legs, but to invite softness through the upper part of the body. As you're here, be in the breath. You can definitely come back to that pattern in the beginning of imagining that breath rising through the front of the body, kissing the crown of the head, and then washing down the back. If you can stay in this breath about 5 more rounds. If you need to come out towards all fours. And you are ready to come out nice and easy. I like to tap the feet, kind of bring them back to life, give them a little TLC. Take your time finding your way, but when you're ready, we'll tuck those toes, lift the hips, and this time walk the hands back towards the feet, finding a dangling position. Now, have a little softness in the knees so you feel relief through the low back. You will hopefully still feel a little bit of tension through the back of the legs. Gentle compression through the front of the body. Rest the hands somewhere. So if you're to the point where you're dangling and the hands aren't touching down, either take them to the body, the block works well, or to the floor or the blanket, whatever kind of configuration works for you today. And as you're here, this pose is aptly named dangling. Just let the body surrender to gravity here, just dangling in space. If the shoulders and crown of the head were in a race here, the crown of the head would win in its drippiness towards the floor. Just a few more breaths here. And then take a moment, just a little in-between pose. Hands start to walk towards the shins. Find a little activity through the legs and a reach through the crown. So we get this sort of 90-degree reach of energy through the body. Take a few breaths here, just imagining that breath following the path from the front of the body to the back of the body. And then when you're ready, soften the knees if you'd like. We'll come forward towards a downward facing dog. And coming from all fours almost always works for yin yoga. Take a moment and settle in here. And then stepping that left foot forward to the outside of the left hand. Help it up if it needs a little love. You might like the use of the block for support, or maybe touching the floor comes pretty comfortably here. And then take a few breaths. Keep it active to start. Feel all of that work, all of that activity through the legs. And then after a few breaths in that position, start to melt down the back knee. And that cush for the knee might be lovely here. As you start to melt to the floor, start to release activity and control. And maybe you get a little closer to the earth in the hands and the elbows. Now, I'll give you a little choice here. You always have options, but I'll present a few for you. You can stay here in the little melt coming forward, or if you'd like, start to twist this dragon. I may have called it lizard. That's the vinyasa term for it. In yin, we call it dragon. Purposely giving the poses different names to invoke different energy. For example, when my son was little, he still is a picky eater. We served him a taco one day, open faced like a tostada, and called it a Mexican pizza, and he gobbled it up. Where a taco he would not eat. So sometimes a little name change, a little change in energy does the trick. Just a few more breaths here. If you were in that twisted shape, start to unwind. And then we'll begin to shift back to a posture called half saddle. Now, if half saddle doesn't work for you, coming in to a little half splits or a runner stretch will be your alternative here. If it's okay on your knees, keeping that right foot out will sit back on the hips. Now, my body doesn't quite conform to this pose, so I am going to add that blanket underneath my left hips just to bring a little bit of levelness. I could also move this blanket out of the way, but I'm actually going to keep it there for today. Settling in here. Now, this is about as far as I will go today. You might have a little extra space. And some of you, especially if your hips are all the way down on the earth or very little support, might like to lean back and maybe even come all the way back to the elbows or fully reclined. That's not a good fit for where my knee is right now, so I'm going to be staying more upright. As you settle into the breath again, maybe find that pattern of inhaling through the front of the body, inviting the breath to kiss the crown, and exhaling all the way through the back of the body. Maintaining that force field, nourishing the fullness, nourishing the wholeness of you. Now, as you're in this pose, especially if you've added support, after your body has had a little bit of time to settle, you might consider if you want to lessen the support, or if you're in that reclined shape, maybe going back slightly further if you feel like you've kind of welcomed that space. Nice part about yin yoga is we do have that time to discern sometimes when we flow and when we're in movement. And, it's a different experience. There's different things we're observing and discovering. So take the time and just figure out what you have the space for today. Just a few more breaths here. And then we'll start to transition out. There's a bunch of ways to come out. I'm actually going to bend that front knee and shift forward, take a little pressure off the back. Coming towards a down dog shape or all fours. I'm going to move that support out because we'll come to be prone to the front of the body. So lowering down either through knee plank or plank. Finding your way into a Sphinx posture. This is one of my favorite back bends. So in this yin practice, you can stay a little more upright if you'd like, or use the structure of the elbows to the floor to allow the heart to hammock. The shoulders just gently collapse slightly behind you. I prefer to keep just a little bit of space. And there's a little hang of the head. If the hang of the head feels like a little too much, this is where a block might be helpful. And you can certainly prop that block up on the blankets to give a little more support if you'd like. So moving up from the legs into the midsection, the back area, working our way up. And as you settle here a little longer, find that breath drawing up through the front of the body. A little kiss to the crown of the head and then releasing down the back body all the way to the heels. And then repeat that visualization, repeat that cycle, inviting the body to fully settle into this posture, into this shape. Just a few more breaths here. When you're ready, surrender all the way to the earth. Now we're going to find a favorite shoulder opener, a favorite twist. If you have concerns with your shoulders, you're going to keep the hands stacked here, elbows wide. Bend the right knee and just come into the twist, reaching that right foot behind you. If your shoulders are okay for this opening, the left arm reaches to the side. As you reach the right foot behind you, rolling onto that shoulder. From here, the head can release to the mat. You can use the blanket, or I'm going to use the block here for support. And then we work through this opening of the shoulder, the twist through the body. And you control the pressure. The further I roll, the more intense it gets. And again, if this is not a happy shape or a healthy shape for your shoulder, take that out of the equation and find the twist. As you follow the breath, as the inhale comes up the front of the body, just imagine that slight turn it takes in the twist, the slight spiral, and then follows that same path down the back of the body. In these pauses, it's always a great time to reconnect with that intention. Maybe that was an intention of fullness. Maybe that was an intention of bringing wholeness. In times of stress and times of challenge, we can feel fragmented. It can be a bit of a safety mechanism, a survival skill to fragment out. So coming back together, bringing back together can be very helpful. Take another few breaths here. And then release to the front of the body when you're ready. And staying here, either prone with the hands stacked if you prefer, or you might like to press back towards a child's pose. So pick the restful posture, the transition posture that you prefer. Not a wrong answer here. Really address what your body is craving in this moment. And then finding the transition to either all fours or down dog. We'll do that series on the second side. So if you had the cushion of the blanket, you might add that back in again. Starting to transition to your starting position. And when you are ready, coming into dragon on the right side, so the right foot steps to the top of the mat. We'll start upright in a little more of an active stance, using that block or hands to the mat if you prefer. And then starting to find that melt, that sink to the floor as much as you'd like. So maybe with bent elbows here, maybe coming to the forearms is a natural space for you. Being in the breath, being with your intention. Appreciating the whole of this body that propels you through life, propels you on this earth. This vessel. Now, your choice always, stay here and sink, or if you are craving that twisting shape, start to add the twist of this dragon. And again, this bottom arm can have more bent. It can come down to the forearm if you'd like. Beyond the fist if the wrist is getting fatigued. Be in the breath, be in your intention here. We'll start to make the transition to our next posture. Unwind and settle a moment at the start of that dragon. So we'll start to make the transition to the half straddle. Remember that the runner's stretch is certainly an option if the half straddle is too much on your knee or hip. I'm going to add the support of the blanket again and then start to shift back. Finding relative levelness in my hips. I could probably take that blanket up just a little bit further. And then from here you can either add the shift back if you'd like, or prop up higher if that's appropriate. Settling into this space, settling into this posture in the fullness of you. There's a lovely quote, and I might not have it from exact memory, but I at least can give you the gist, from Friedrich Nietzsche. And he says, there's more wisdom in the body than in your deepest philosophy. There is more wisdom in your body than in your deepest philosophy. I love this quote. I think the more quality time we spend in this vessel, the more we know about ourselves, about others, about how we interact with our world. Our bodies are pretty phenomenal when you think about just the complex systems and architecture that we can breathe without really thinking about it. It's pretty phenomenal. And the feedback and information that our bodies give us when we are in danger or in peace, in argument or in love, are so telling, so informative. But we have to be in it. We have to take the time to listen. So a few more breaths here. Then we'll start to find our way out. However you want to come out is fine. As I come forward, I'm going to start to remove the props so that for the next pose. They're not in the way. So maybe all fours are down dog. Just take a moment to calibrate and find symmetry. And start to take your path to be prone, however you want to get there. And finding round 2 of our Sphinx posture. So you can certainly take the same tactic of the melt that we had in the first round. If you prefer and you want a little more activity, maybe a little more expansion, coming into a more active Sphinx, adding a little yang flavor to that Sphinx, or lifting the elbows, coming into your seal shape. Being in the breath, being in the body. Being in the wisdom. If you came up into seal, start to come back down to that Sphinx shape. You can come all the way down if you'd like. We'll prepare for the twist. So a reminder, if the shoulders are a challenge, you'll bend the left knee and just reach that foot behind you, coming into a twist. If the shoulders are compliant or willing, the right arm comes out to the side. The left knee bends, and you find the twist there. Being in this opening, being in this twist. Imagining that breath spiraling up through the front of the body, kissing the crown, and then making the gentle spiral downward, down the back to the heels. Maintaining this force field, this sanctuary. Maybe even tying together the body as a whole. Be with the breath, be with intention. Just a few more breaths here. And slowly start to unwind. And then choosing that restful shape that works for you. Maybe staying prone here. Maybe shifting back through a child's pose. Or if you would like the activity of a downward facing jog, pausing there. And then sometime in the next few breaths, taking a transition onto your seat and then into a reclined shape. From here, either feet to the floor, knees up in a nice grounded shape, or if you prefer a mini savasana, that might be lovely here. And then hug the left knee into the chest, movement if you'd like. If it's available, extend the bottom leg, the right leg long, and start to pull that left knee into the twist, just gently. Let the right foot settle on the bottom leg or on the floor as you dig into the twist. Now, the left hand you might actually take behind the head, so you get a little pull through the left side body. And then you can stay here. This would be a great place to marinate. Or add just a gentle extension of the right leg. And this is where maybe having the props or even a block to help with that support there. And this depends on you, depending on, notice the pull through that outer seam of the leg. Maybe you want the leg a little straighter. Maybe you want a little bit bigger bend in the knee. Find a place of interesting feedback and be there. Following that breath up from the big toe, the left big toe, up the body, through the compression of the midsection, all the way up to the crown of the head. Then back down the body, down the back of the right leg. And then keep that cycle, that breath pattern going. Just a few more breaths here in this twist. And then starting to unwind, coming to a neutral shape. And you might take those feet to the floor, knees up, or open up for a moment, taking up some space in a mini shavasana shape. Mini in time, not in the reach. And then stepping those feet to the mat to start. I'm going to move my blankets off to the other side since they were a nice aid during that extension. This time the right knee hugs in as you take that knee across the body. Left leg extends. Touch down on something. Come into the twist, and that right hand might come behind the head. And then maybe starting to find a little reach or extension through that top leg, that right leg. This time, as you imagine, as you follow that breath from the right toes all the way up the front of the body through the midsection, kiss the crown, and down the back of the body to the left heel. Each breath encircles and nourishes the body, creates that force field, ties and brings together. Maybe allowing for some appreciation of your fullness, of your wholeness. Be in the breath, be in your intention. Just a few more breaths here in this twist. And then begin to unwind, coming back to the back. Staying here with feet to the floor, knees up, or opening up just for a moment in Shavasana. Take a moment and observe this body with lots of amazement, some compassion, and begin to consider what the perfect, restful, restorative shape looks like for you. If you have the blankets, you might like to find a soft, a little bit of a pillow. You can certainly use additional blankets to cover up or to add a little grounding to the hips. Take some time here to find the perfect shape where, as much as you can, the body feels completely at peace. And as you settle in and as you find your peaceful shape, I will invite you to stay here a little bit longer if you can. Set a timer for 5 or 10 minutes and just allow the body to soften and relax, enjoying Shavasana. Thank you so much for joining me on the mat today and for this practice. It is my privilege to be here with you. Have a lovely, lovely rest of your day. Namaste.